Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the episode 12 of Sustainabus. No, actually, last month, Mai and Abby, one of the sustainability champions, discussed about sustainability reporting in the Philippines, and it's very timely and relevant in the corporate sustainability world. And for this evening, no, last Wednesday of the month, we will talk about one of the interesting topics in sustainability, which is the ESG, or environmental, social, and governance, and how this ESG becomes a global language for business. No, actually, last episode, I remembered my previous life as a sustainability reporter. So with Mai and Abby discuss about GRI, materiality assessment, uh, what else? They also talk about SASV, different standards about sustainability reporting. And for this evening, pag-uusapan naman natin ang ESG world, the ESG rating assessments, the new language of the business, at iba't iba pang paraan para ma-integrate itong ESG in different corporate businesses. No? So today we'll talk about ESG as becomes a global language for business. And we have a special guest this night. No, so we have a seasoned ESG professionals who's been helping several companies in the Philippines and how the ESG reporting works to the company. So ilang taon na siyang tumutulong sa Philippine companies, iba't ibang Philippine companies with regards to the ESG reporting or sustainability reporting. And now he is currently assessing the ESG performance of the global companies. Actually, he is the alumnus of Ateneo de Manila University, major in environmental science, and he worked in communities for 2 years with Foundation for the Philippine Environment, and he worked in sustainable business for sustainable development for almost 8 years, especially on sustainability reporting. And currently, he is a seasoned ESG analyst. So without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce to you our guest. Let's welcome Jobe De La Torre.
Hi, Marxist.
Hi,
Good
Jobe.
evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see you again after all these
Yes,
years,
it's
and good
nice
evening to
to
your
see you again.
televiewers. Televiewers
Yeah.
bang yung
Good
term.
evening, everyone. No, actually, Job and I, we've worked before, no, when I still a sustainability reporter in a conglomerate company, and now we're both in an ESG world, in an ESG
Mhm.
world. So, Job, first of all, no, so we're talking about environmental, social, and governance, or
Yep.
ESG, no. What what is ESG, no? For those first timers na nakarinig, first time lang marinig si ESG, can you
Mhm.
give us the brief concept about it?
All right. So as you mentioned, Marxist, earlier in your introduction, so ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. So these are the three pillars, as for lack of a better term, three pillars of that um, a theme. So when we talk about sustainability, particularly in a business, lagi nating tinatanong, ano ba yung sustainability for us? Di ba? It's
Yes.
so broad, it's so out there. But one of the things that we could look at when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to companies, is those three pillars. How is it performing from an environmental aspect? So what are the impacts it has to the environment? How much resources does it take? How optimal yung paggamit niya ng resources, ng water, ng energy? In terms of pollution, what are the impacts that it has sa climate change? So that's the amount of greenhouse gases, the amount of air pollution, of wastewater. And from a social aspect naman, it's how they treat employees, it's how they treat communities and other stakeholders, how compliant they are with all of these laws, for example. And from a governance perspective, for me, it's the glue that binds all of this together. So, how does the board react when it to these topics? What are the management approaches that it has to manage its impacts? How does it perform well in a way that is ethical, that
Yeah.
is free from corruption? So all of these things, it's sort of a 360 view at the company. Kasi before we kind of look at the value or the impact of a company from a purely financial perspective. And in the past
Yes.
few years, yun na yung pumasok na yung mga non-financial na aspects, which is now what we call ESG. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree on that, no. Actually, sustainability kasi is a big word, no. So, ako from my end, parang sustainability is just a mindset. It's a mindset of
Mhm.
the everyone of the business. And ESG is somehow the pillars to execute this kind of mindset, no. So,
True.
through the environmental impact, social impact, and even the governance, which is bind everything, each department of the businesses.
Yeah.
No? So yeah, since you are, I know you are an alumnus in an environmental science major. So medyo
Uh,
in line talaga yung work mo dito. So
yeah.
can you give us or can you share us your brief professional background?
Ay,
Paano ka napunta sa
paano
ESG?
napunta sa world na to? Yeah.
Yes.
So, before, so when I was in college, so as you mentioned, I'm an environmental science major, and then nag-EIA pa ako nun, mga 6 months. Tapos bumalik ako
Oh,
for masters. And then after masters, I saw an opening. So it's with FPE. And for 2 years, I worked there with communities. And I will always see that yung parang nag-academe ako and then community work, which gave me in a way a perspective then on community. Sometimes kasi we do delegate community as just mere numbers na
yes.
para may impact tayo, may fence line, may barangay, whatever doon na ang layo. And when you see people's faces, may there and you get to know them, it's a different kind of feeling then. It's very, very fulfilling when you work with communities. And then, ayun na, nakita ko from opening ulit, formerly Philippine Business for the Environment, and by God's grace, nakapasok. And I was there for 7 to 8 years, and most of it was
Wow.
about, yun, preparing sustainability reports, like yung project natin before. And then,
Yes.
that's where we met, training companies on sustainability reporting. And then, now after it's after some time, it's like I came full circle na dito naman sa side na to, nare-rate naman yung output natin dati.
Yes.
Parang ganun. How does the company perform based on the disclosures and the performance that it has, the usual, the sustainability reports, the annual reports that it has, and whatever information you could glean about the company. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
From
nice
ESG
journey.
perspective. Oh, parang ano lang, dati taga-gawa, ngayon taga-score.
Taga taga-assess na, no. No.
Taga-assess naman,
Actually,
yeah.
a fan fact lang for all our viewers, no. So when I was introduced to sustainability and ESG world, Jobe is one of our trainers, no, during my GRI certification training before. So
Kaya ako
yeah,
kinuha
doon kami
ngayon.
nag-meet. Kaya siya ang guest natin for this
Yes.
episode.
Mm.
Since we know naman the financial reporting is very important in the business, no. So corporate social responsibility is now also an
Mhm.
important one of the importance of the business nakikita natin. Now naman, can you give us why ESG is important in the business?
All right. So I guess kung if we just look at ESG as envi social governance, diba, I'll go a step deeper from the definition earlier, no. So when we talk about now ESG, at least from a company perspective, previously earlier I talked about that the company has impacts, external impacts to the environment, impacts to society, and of course impacts in terms of how it manages this from governance perspective, no, how it does all of these things. But a little deeper than that, because of those impacts and interactions with different stakeholders, it also has an impact and risks to the company. Now, in terms, it could be from
Yeah.
a financial perspective, it could be reputational, it could be
Yes.
na-fine siya because, ang dami niyang pollution, it had sa standards, hindi siya nag-meet ng standards. So in a way, it has an impact to the bottom line as well. Kung may reputational risk doon, loss of customers, perhaps kung may, let's say, an issue on corruption. No, so stocks in a way could fall because of all of this. So it's like kung anong ginawa mo basically ng company, if it does well, we're hoping that the market would also reward it, diba, in
Yeah.
a way. But if it doesn't do well, the market could either punish it or regulations would also, in a way, punish the company. Now, so it depends. It all depends on performance uh, and how the company really manages these kinds of risks, external, that so that it could prevent the risks back to the company. Right? So kung maayos naman, maayos yung walang reklamo sa kanya, maayos
Yes.
yung pakikitungo niya with the government, with society, hindi siya masyado pollutive, in a way, there's a less risk to the company. So that's how we see it on a deeper level. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, I really agree on that. The reputational risk, the compliance risk, no, the
Hmm.
climate change risk, then the
Climate
perform.
change risks, yes.
Yeah. So, mga yun yung mga kaakibat talaga ng
Oo.
ESG, no, in how. So speaking of that, no, in this kind of risk, no, so how we properly integrate ESG in the business process, in different departments, and even the job description or roles of the employees.
Okay. Yeah. So I think even from what we're from a previous work natin with BSD no before, we used to preach din naman na all of this could be integrated. Some before kasi when we talk about sustainability and ESG, ay pang environment lang siya lagi. It's
Yeah.
always delegated, di ba? Na, I guess you've heard it now.
Yes.
You've told me your background mo rin from accounting. So it's like, pag financial ka, hindi, sila ano yan, sila sa safety, sa health, sa
Yeah.
OHS, sa kanila yon, that's their work. But when we, but right now, it's, yun nga, ESG, it's just, environment is just one pillar. There's a lot going on, may social pa, may governance pa. And in a way, I guess it's natural for a company to look into these things because it's it's the operations itself. It's how you will uh, make yourself na yung impact mo is positive at from a social
Yeah.
perspective, or manage your impact from an environment perspective. So you could be coming from you're an HR practitioner. So think about the things that could help out your employees in their work life, work life balance, all of these things, ano mga leaves na pwedeng gawin, what are the engagement stuff that you could do to your people, so you could engage, the more engaged the employees are, the better they are, the more productive they could be. When it's from environment perspective, alam na natin yon. I mean, right now, you've mentioned climate change risk. So there's a lot of regulations globally, a
Yes.
lot of yung sa Paris palang conventions and all of this. I guess it all started with climate change. Tapos nag-spread out na lang talaga to with other topics. So there's your waste management, for example. So I guess there's first you could have those management systems in place, like environmental management systems, your HR systems, systems to minimize corruption from at all levels in the company.
Yeah.
And I guess one important thing is the board should be on board with
That's true.
all of this. Because sometimes I guess with traditional boards that we have, it's all about the financials, diba? I mean, let's face it, companies will are there to make profit, and the number one numbers would be about financials. But the board should be on board when it comes to this sphere, in this kind of language, that they should also know that it's not just about financials, it's also about these non-financial things. Kasi iba pa rin eh. If the board is there, there's a top-down approach. It goes to the management, it
Yeah.
goes to all the way to the rank and file, and that's how you steer the whole ship of the company. So that's I guess from more generalized perspective, that's how ESG is integrated. And of course, risk sa enterprise risk management pa
Yes.
lang. I mean, it's not just about financials, it's operational risks. All of this could be most of this could be operational risks that the company could face. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I really agree on that. And I remember my now experiencing the both side of the coin in the ESG world as a reporter and then as an analyst also. integrating ESG, it should be even in a small detail, like in a job description of a certain role, and even in the performance of a certain team, in
Mhm.
implementing in different system, like what you've mentioned, in the internal controls, and even the both the lower management and the upper management should meet halfway, no, to meet these ESG goals. And we have to communicate it. No, it's
Yeah.
not just it doesn't end only for implementing it or execution it in our
Mhm.
process.
True.
The one, I think one of the very important phase also in the ESG is the reporting and or the
Okay.
monitoring of
Yeah.
these performances, and
True.
how to communicate it with our different stakeholders, right?
Yes.
So I think that's how we integrate ESG also in the
Y-
business.
yun yung topic nyo last week. Last time pala with Avi, no? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's true. So ESG in a way, again, it's performance, but it's also about communication. What are you doing?
Yes.
Because in a way, from an ESG perspective, the stakeholders are also interested. Your company, your employees, shareholders, investors. I think we're going touching that point na naman in a bit, no? So what you are doing when it about your company, about these things, because it's companies don't operate in a vacuum, right? So
Yeah.
there's really may impact talaga kahit papaano. Where do you put your money basically? So right now, you mentioned na lang siguro the one of the things na laging ano for yung capex, for example, if about climate change, is still what
Yeah.
kind of technologies do you buy or something. So yun, dun mo ma-integrate in when it comes to the company. And
Fine.
hindi lang
So
biglaan to.
yeah.
I mean, it could be a
Oo.
long conversation, long inside the company, among the board, among the management.
Yeah. So, well, since we already, let's say, integrated ESG in the business, and we have to communicate it to our different stakeholders, the government, the public, the the investors specifically. So, how does the ESG rating assessment? Because in the ESG world, we have this thing, ESG rating assessment, become now the language of the business. No, so
Mm.
how do you think, no, this does the ESG rating assessment become the language of the business?
All right. So I think when we look at it before, may mga ratings din from a financial ratings, right? So that's how in a way dun nag-rank yung mga businesses. Right now with the rise of ESG, the trend that we are looking at, investors are looking more and more into the non-financial aspects. So right now,
That's true.
it becomes in a way part of the conversation when you talk to investors, when you talk to government, perhaps nakikita na rin nila because, for example, sa SEC na rin,
Yeah.
we're now requiring SEC is requiring companies now to also um, report on non-financials on ESG, basically, di ba? So it now becomes part of the conversation. It's not a by the way. So I think that's where we're getting at. ESG is not a by the way. It becomes
Yes.
part and parcel of how you will communicate what your business is all about. Just don't say na oy, we're rating A plus in our financials. Maganda yung pagkagawa ng financial statements natin. So just one part. That's the F. But now with the E, G, and S, there's a lot of raters na rin. Oy, dito we're scored high in this company, and I guess investors now are also looking into it na, and with the proper context, with looking at different scores that you have across different raters as well. In a way, you could have a pretty good idea of your performance when it comes to this. And and I think it's yeah, I think it's really part of the conversation. You just don't say it's about financials, but look, we're doing really well from a non-financial perspective also. Yeah. And yep,
Yes.
investors
Yeah.
are looking into that. There's a trend right now of the number of investors looking on ESG year on year. Hmm.
Mm. Yeah, so actually you're right, Jobe, no? So before well, let's say the financials and or profit
Mm.
becomes the language of business. Now we're the investor thinks more than the going concern of the business, not just in a profit way. Oh, kumikita
Mm.
nga, no? Ang taas-taas nga ng profit, but you have a negative impact, environmental impact,
Yep.
and you're not compliant. So the government can shut you down easily. So
Mm.
the going concern assumption of your business, no, is at the high risk. So the investor considered also the non-financial
Yes.
performance of the business. So
Yes.
that's why we ESG rating assessment becomes the
Part
language
of
of
it.
the
Yeah.
business and very important nowadays, right?
Yeah, because I guess ano rin, I think I'll add to it because investors are looking into this again as a risk. Eh. Not just financials. It if you
Yes.
yung history ng sustainability reporting, why it all came about, it's because mga ano pa yun ng Enron, mga times pa ng Enron in the 90s where it fell because of corruption, 'di ba? Na lahat financially okay siya but doon pala there's a lot of things going on that is not written in the financial statements only. But then later on, may impact din doon sa financial statement. So if you're
That's
investing in a
true.
company na, uy, okay siya on paper now, just looking at financials, pero, you know, ESG pala hindi. In a way, your sins will find you out sooner or later. Meron palang hindi magandang nagagawa. So
Yes.
that's the in a way one of the things why ESG became part of the conversation, why investors are also looking into this more and more.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for example, you have a fine or penalty that will
Oh,
cost you
di
so
ba?
much, di ba?
It
So
costs
yun yung
so
mga
much.
sample
Oh,
makaka-affect sa financial performance also of
oh.
the business, right?
Mag-invest ka tapos yung pag-invest mo pala pambayad lang doon
Bayad
sa
lang ng
penalty, di
fines
ba?
and
ng
penalties. No?
fines,
So,
di ba?
I think that's no, that I agree on that. At the end of the day, no, all the environmental, the social, and the governance impact that we have in the business, no, it boils down again in the economic performance of the business or the
Mhm.
financial performance of the business. So
Yep.
kailangan talagang pagtuunan ng pansin tong ESG rating. I personally believe that ESG
Mhm.
rating assessment. So I think yeah, actually ESG is a big topic, a broad topic, and kulang talaga yung 15-minute
Yep.
discussion
Oo.
natin. Anyway, Jobe, do you have any last message no about the ESG topic that we had today?
Okay. So I think Marxist I'll go back din kanina no. So it's to what I said earlier that all of this ESG ratings, the topic that we have is just really contingent about how the company performs. And I'll just encourage companies basically just to continue to do good and continue to do what is right. Hopefully with that the ratings will just come. I suppose. I mean, hindi ako magpa-promise or whatever, no. But but the chances of you being rewarded by the market, by your investors, by the regulations, if you're doing good, if you're doing what is right. So yeah, just encourage everyone to do what you're doing. If there's some things that you need to improve on those things. So it's basically a conversation, ratings, sustainability reporting. It's a conversation between how companies could further improve. Look at what other companies are also doing that you think are leaders in your field. Get to know what they're doing, how they got there, their journeys as well. No, so hopefully with that, it takes a collection kasi of companies of other sectors in order to move sustainability forward. So just ESG is just one tool or methodology, I suppose, that could help companies and other stakeholders to know where they are in their journey, but just continue doing what you do. Now, you continue to
Yes.
improve, and if there are things that you think are you're lagging behind, sige lang, just also communicate what you are doing in terms of your management approach and how you're rectifying it. Yun, so I wish everyone the best in their sustainability journey. Now it's ratings change year on year. Sometimes
Yeah.
hindi, pero it's ano sustainability is a journey. It's not
Yes.
static. Yeah, so yeah, I wish everyone the best and thank you, Marxist, for inviting me as
Thank
well.
you, Jobe.
Yep.
Yeah. I enjoy this discussion, the
Oh,
ESG, and that's true. No, when you do good, when you do well, the ES good grade will
mhm.
follow. The low impact, negative impact will also follow. The low
Yeah,
risk on the businesses will follow.
yeah.
I agree on that. So, thank you, Jobe. I really enjoy our discussion. Sobrang
Yes.
bitin. No? So I
Oh,
hopefully
parang
we could have like
parang kwentong
a
barbero lang.
detailed ESG, no? Like we have a
Yeah,
detailed ESG discussion and you will be part of one of our panelists or guests no, moving forward or in
kung
the
pwede.
next.
Yeah.
Diba? So thank you so much,
Thank
Jobe,
you, Marcus.
and
Good
have a great
evening.
day also.
Have a great day. Thank you. God bless everyone.
Yeah, we had a great discussion with Jobe about sustainability, about ESG, and thank you for tuning us this Wednesday. Anyway, next month episode will be hosted by Chantel, the co-founder of SSP. So anyone can join. Also, no, if you are a sustainability practitioner, please join the Society of Sustainability Practitioners. Here's the link now below. So thank you so much and have a great night. Bye bye.